I think an important part of thinking about implementing agents is deciding what you want to automate and what you do not want to automate. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's more of an identity question. So I'll quickly talk through how we're thinking about it. I'm happy to filter deals, right? By that I mean like automatically filter deals that are too late for us, for example. Research and reporting, internal summaries, portfolio monitoring, love that kind of stuff. We're starting to play with supplemental scaled communication, but we're very careful in separating it from what we consider relationship building. And so for us, like what stays human, who we decide to talk to, who we invest in, and real relationship building, as well as context-heavy judgment calls. That's something that for us as a firm is something that we're going to continue doing. And this matters because I think that what you decide to automate to some extent reveals what your firm thinks its job is. And what I mean by that, and it's kind of a vague statement, but there's a firm that does algorithmic investing, and I believe one of their key parameters happens to be co-investors. Now, it's easy to hate on that because it's like, oh, you're just following on. But if you think about it, that firm's like what that firm does is give access to LPs, right? If there's a firm that can get into deals led by top tier VCs, then I think it might be okay that the lead investor is a parameter in their algorithmic investing, and that the algorithm is making those decisions if their job as a firm is to get access. As a pre-seed VC who's investing at sub 10 million valuation, our job is not access. Our job is building conviction. So that's the thing we cannot automate. Again, that's just kind of an example of two different firms and what it might automate and why, what that says about the firm. I mean, the challenges are real. Memory, reliability. I mean, that's honestly like kind of what all agent builders are working on. Probably not where VCs should be spending their time figuring out how to solve. But security and legal compliance, that is something you should be very aware of, especially as you start implementing agents. Having small experiments is helpful. What you do not want is for an agent to make a costly mistake. So as you start experimenting, as you start implementing, there are things you can do to make sure that the biggest mistakes that you don't want to happen would never happen, just based on the permissions that you give your agent and so on. I mean, I think over automation, I don't really see VCs doing this, but yes, I think you can dilute your brand. And then perhaps, I guess, one of the biggest challenges, like who owns this system within the firm. For us, some things that we're still thinking through, in case it's helpful for other people to think about, like are we going to have one giant central system, which is what I ideally want. But practically, having a whole bunch of smaller systems seems easier to evolve and without risking kind of a central core structure breaking. Where do the automations live, right? I mentioned Wokello, co-founder, Atio as 3 different places my agents live. That doesn't include ChatGPT and Claude or Zapier, where some of my agents live. It's not really the best organized system. So like, where should these live? Where should the data live? And how do you stay up to date with the frontier? I mean, is it even important? But how do you build in a way where I don't have to rebuild from scratch or feel like things I just spent building is completely a waste of time? And human in the loop. Where does human in the loop live, right? I think since OpenClaw, the idea of being able to text with your agents is fantastic, but I have not been able to plug that into all my other agents yet. But again, human in the loop is important because one of the biggest challenges in implementing agents at VC firms that I've also observed, especially when the agent builder comes in from external, is really changing GP behavior. Ultimately, if the agent's not being used, it doesn't add value to the firm. So again, these are the things that we're currently kind of thinking through as we continue to build out our agentic VC.